ever served, not only in Rock Island, but throughout the state of Illinois. John has been watching us over the last few months as there's been information talking about Mercer County evaluating and looking at hiring a county administrator. And I ran into John about a month or so ago at a DARI meeting, and we talked briefly, and John was willing to come and talk to us about the benefits of having a county administrator. And I think with the timing of the budget and discussions around the importance of having a county administrator, I think that we can certainly appreciate having John here tonight. So John, without any further ado, welcome. Let's welcome John Phillips.
Thank you. I'm going to give Ted my business cards here, and you can just pass those around. It says on there I'm a range writer. I'm a volunteer for the Illinois City County Management Association. And that's the title of those volunteers who help serve our members of the association, as well as try to promote professional, transparent, ethical local government in counties and cities across Illinois. And now they actually changed our name to Senior Advisor, which kind of makes me feel old. But now we're Senior Advisors instead of Range Riders. But there's 5 in Illinois, and I've been doing this since I retired 3 years ago as city manager in Rock Island. I was there 25 years, not a million. Before that, I was city administrator in Rockford, Illinois. I got my master's degree in public administration from Northern Illinois University a long time ago. And so it was my career to be a city manager, to try to have professional, ethical local government. And so this is an opportunity for me to kind of stay engaged in the profession since I retired. So I've been involved in several local governments, looking at hiring city administrators for the first time. I was in touch with the mayor of Savannah, Illinois earlier this week. After Dixon had their problems, I spent quite a bit of time visiting with Dixon and the citizens group, looking at what do we need to do to try to make sure this kind of thing could never happen. They just passed, by the way, council manager form of government on Tuesday in Dixon by 76%. So I was pleased. I worked on that a little bit, and hopefully that will help that community make sure something like that never happens again. And also with some counties, I spent some time in Rock Island County. They just recently passed a resolution to establish the position of county administrator. I'm doing some work in Bureau County. They are, I think, going to proceed with the recruitment for a county administrator. So it's been busy in my area looking at professional local government, and I can see, the county structure in particular really hasn't changed much in 150 years since it was set up in terms of its actual structure. And things have changed over that time. And whether you're a big county or whether you're a small county, I was telling Ted, it doesn't really make that much difference, because it's just a matter of the zeros in the budget. But you have the environmental laws that you have to comply with, you have the labor laws you have to comply with. Technology is still a critical issue. Websites, people's expectation for services quickly and automatically are there, whether you're a small jurisdiction or whether you're a large jurisdiction. HR laws, environmental laws, technology, all these things come to the forefront in any government of any size. So I think that's been some of the reason why we've seen more call for some of these communities that have never had professional administrators to think about it, at least. And so tonight it's just a matter of kind of getting you thinking about it and have a kind of an informal conversation about it. So some of the things that administrator doesn't do, let me start off with things that in a county the administrator does not do. Does not make policy. That's the role of the county board, the elected officials. Does not approve contracts, may recommend contracts. Certainly the county board sets taxing levels. It does not change anything that's currently in the state statutes, whether regard to the board or the independent elected officials that are part of county government. Their duties and responsibilities do not change. What the administrator does in those counties in Illinois that have administrators, some day-to-day oversight of the operations, carry out board policies, excuse me, coordinate budget presentation and preparation for the board, supervise non-elected county operations, make recommendations to the board, identify ways to operate more efficiently, look to organizational innovations, encourage open, transparent, ethical local government, and work with the independent elected official holders to coordinate things like hiring, equipment, supply purchases, equipment maintenance, technology purchases. So trying to cut across those lines and work with everybody to try to streamline all that on a day-to-day basis. So those are some of the things that I believe should be considered as you look at the concept of an administrator. One of the first things, if the county wants to pursue it, there are several ordinances or resolutions that other counties in Illinois have adopted to specify more specifically those duties and responsibilities that an administrator would have. I've got several of those from most counties in Illinois that have been, some counties have had administrators for, probably 30 years. There's probably 25 counties in Illinois with administrators. Typically, the larger ones do. The ones we looked at when we were working with Rock Island County are DeKalb County, McHenry County, Peoria County, McLean County, Champaign County. So those are the larger ones that do, but also Whiteside County, Henry County, Bureau County. So there's some smaller ones as well that have had administrators for a long time. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I thought maybe I'd just open it up for a conversation and questions that people have.
About what kind of cost would an administrator cost the county?
Well, a lot of times, that's the not unusual question. I just looked at some other counties in Illinois, and I'll just give you the population, some of the smaller counties that have administrators. Carroll County has a population of 15,000. They have an administrator, 74,000.
74,000?
Yes. Henry County, population of 50,000. They've got an administrator of 58,785. Union County, 17,800 population. Their administrator makes 60,000. Then Whiteside, population of 58,000, their administrator I see here 92,000. So it's kind of all over the board. Sometimes these positions have come kind of from within, people who maybe have worked in the state's attorney's office or someplace else and kind of moved into the position. Sometimes those folks are not ended up paid as highly, and they've been there a long time. So it kind of evolves, the position evolves. In other cases, you create the position, do a recruitment, and get someone from the outside that has maybe the master's degree or experience in another county or another jurisdiction. And so if you were going to move ahead, what you'd want to do is do a little market study and see where you need to be to attract the kind of candidates that you're interested in.
Is this anything can be done on a part-time basis? I mean, like you said, it's a 5-day a week, like a 3-day a week job, or?
If you set it up that way and you felt that would meet your needs, you just have to determine whether you can find a candidate that would be, qualified and interested in that. It's possible. There is, kind of a situation. Al Wilson is part-time administrator in Cold Valley, and so it worked out for them, it worked out for him. He was retired from the arsenal, as garrison manager there. And so now he's retiring, and Coal Valley is recruiting for a full-time position, because they see the demand that is there for the position and want to turn it into a full-time position. But you might be able to find something part-time if that's what you're interested in. But that'll limit your pool of candidates.
John, based on your experience in government, don't administrators usually pay for themselves? And then some?
I think so. You know, I guess I go back to, I was always prepared to answer that question, because sometimes people would ask you that. Citizens are demanding of their local government, they expect to get their money's worth. And I always felt I could easily look back and know that either it could be cutting expenses, doing something more efficient. It could be working with your state legislator to get a project done that's gonna generate $300,000 in a resurfacing project or some other thing that they contacted you because they knew you would respond quickly and take advantage of that opportunity to get that project done. So, boom, you know, you can point to that. Sometimes it's, let's say it's economic development. You're working on a development project that's gonna result in higher sales tax revenue or a growth in your assessed value. And so it, you know, by working on that project and getting it to succeed, you've got the ability to raise your tax base, which generates revenue. So it, sometimes collections of revenue aren't as good as it could be. There may be ideas on fee collections, or I remember looking at a cable franchise, you know, going to MediaCom and trying to identify everybody, were they sending the franchise fees to the right community? Is their sales tax going to the right community? And invariably, those folks don't care that much, really. They collect it, they send it out, they're doing their job. Well, it could be going to Rock Falls instead of Rock Island, or somebody, and they don't care. But we care. And so we found, like in MediaCom, there was quite a bit going to the Rock Island addresses, going to the unincorporated area or to Milan, because we have some areas in the southwest where it's kind of confusing where the borders are. And so, you know, there's things like that where you could, cha-ching, you know, generate some revenue for the community that really was yours. I mean, it's not painful to the taxpayer, it didn't make any difference at all. But we got what we should have been receiving all along, and it generated more revenue. So I think you can look at it on the cost saving side in terms of the efficiency, or you can look at it on things like that to generate more revenue. And certainly economic development is always an area where you can, if you can be successful in a big project, it doesn't take too much to generate sales tax or property tax or other revenues to help that cost.
John, what about strategic planning or capital planning?
Well, I think
what does an administrator do there for accounting?
Well, I think every government, probably every business for that matter, needs to have a plan, needs to have, a county, big or small. I'm sure you've got a lot of facilities. There should be a plan put together for what's needed in order to maintain those facilities, in terms of the costs that need to be incurred over the next 5-10 years to maintain those, keep them up to good shape, and the revenue stream that is gonna be needed in order to support those improvements. You know, every jurisdiction I was in, that was one of the most important things that we did, was put together a good, solid 5-year capital improvement plan. And I think the citizens like that too. If my street's in year 3, you can say, hey, your street's in year 3, okay? We can't do it today, but it's on the schedule for year 3. And the money will be there in order to build that project. And a lot of times we get into local governments where you're deferring maintenance. You don't think about these things, the buildings start to deteriorate because there's not that plan to put that investment in. And then, of course, what happens, whether it be a street or whether it be a building, your costs go higher if you don't do that ongoing maintenance. So I think that's a critical part, and I think any good administrator should help bring those together. A lot of times in a county, you may have a really good plan in one area, you may not have a real good plan in another area. And so this kind of brings it all together so that you can see the big picture of all of the county's infrastructure and the resources that are gonna be needed in order to invest and maintain that infrastructure.
John, talk a little bit about the politics or the non-politics of the county administrator. One of the things that I always found very good about you is you were able to transcend the politics and you stuck to, in a nonpartisan way, the needs of the city. Talk a little bit about that, because, you know, obviously, there is politics involved in county, city, state government.
Well, one of the things I think would be important for any local government trying to pursue this would be to have them be part of the professional association. There's a code of ethics as part of that. And one of those provisions in the code of ethics is that you do not participate in partisan elections or any political activity. So that's why you didn't see me ever at any fundraisers or making any donations to anything, because that will hurt your ability to work with everybody. When I was the first city administrator in Rockford, they had a 20-member council, and it was split down the line, Republicans, Democrats, but they voted to establish the position of city administrator. The mayor broke the tie. He could vote if there was a tie between aldermen. And they did it. They said they set it up for 1 year. And then there was a sunset provision on it. And I was young and probably stupid, but I said, sure, no problem. And as it turned out, they kept it. It's still there today. But some of those who had voted against it thought it was of value after that year, and I guess today, because they felt they had someone independent. It was a very partisan city, Republicans, Democrats. It was, you know, everything was pretty political, but they saw the administrator as a position that didn't have an axe to grind, would provide the straight information to them, and weren't just carrying a water for somebody else. And they after a while said, hey, this isn't too bad. So that is a critical part of this profession. You want to hire somebody who's not connected in any way with politics, because you know there's no, you know, when they come to potholes and things like that and good government, my feeling has always been, you know, good government is good politics. If you can get the job done effectively, that's what's most important to the people. And you should be able to work with everyone to accomplish that, but that is a key thing. If you hired somebody who was more partisan, I think it would be a big mistake, and I wouldn't recommend it. I just don't think it would work. It's going to be a temporary kind of move that goes with the people they're affiliated or closely connected to. Other questions?
The administrators, can they hold different hats, like do different positions, administrator and plus another position too in the county?
Sure, I mean, to some extent. I mean, you know, for example, I mentioned economic development. Or HR, head of human resources, economic, I mean, they would probably, in a small county like this, they'd be probably doing all of that. My guess is, you know, I mean, whatever those kinds of needs were. Obviously, they're not gonna do things that are within the purview of the independent elected officials. But those things the board wants done in that kind of area, sure. You know, and you find that in almost any small municipality as well, where they gotta wear a lot of hats. So you got to, it's a tough job, I'll say that. You know, I always had staff I could rely on, but, you know, you're in a small community, you you do have to wear a lot of hats, you have to become more expert at a lot of different aspects of governance. It kind of depends what your priorities are. One of the first things you would do if you, I mentioned the resolution, but if you're going to start a recruitment process, I always recommend you do a position profile. You know, what are the most important characteristics you want? What are your goals? Is economic development a goal? And what role would you see the county trying to play to help stimulate investment in your economy? Is it, you know, some public facilities, or is it budget, or you have HR, labor-related issues or problems? I mean, people are going to come to this with different experiences and skills, and that helps you to evaluate the different candidates. But kind of up to you as to where you would want to focus. Not everybody's going to be an expert at everything.
John, two questions. One, would you be able to help us if we formed a search committee and began putting together a work profile or job description, and would you be able to assist us in bringing in qualified candidates to an interview committee to talk to?
Yes, I could help to some extent. Now, there's two ways to do these searches. One is internally, where you basically do it like you would if you're recruiting for some other staff kind of appointed position. Another is to hire a firm or somebody to help. And if a county could afford it, you know, like Rock Island County's pursuing hiring a search firm. And the advantage of that is their network is wider than mine in order to identify people who might be interested in that position. And I recommended that they do that. Because there's some people very experienced, there's firms that are very experienced and specialize in county and city management recruitment. There are search firms that just focus on that. And so I felt that they would probably handle that better. In a smaller county, I could provide some help, for example, helping put the job description together, the job ad, suggest where it should be placed in order to get candidates in. I could get the word out and promote that position within our association. I'm in touch. As I say, there's a lot of, one of my jobs is kind of like this, talking about this concept, but the other is being available to members of our association.
Is there a cost to the county to use your services? Or
No, there is not. But, what I have to be careful of is I'm all over and I'm
Sure.
a volunteer, and so I'm not gonna do the same work for you as a volunteer that a search firm will
No,
do.
that's
And I just
right.
wanna clarify that. I don't wanna overpromise and underdeliver. I will help you through the process. And there could be, in Bureau County, for example, I just gave them the name of a retired city manager who does this a little bit on the side, and he'd be a whole lot cheaper than a search firm. Instead of $20,000, he'll probably be $5,000. And he's kind of doing it, and he's good. And that's kind of the model I'm thinking of for a small county or a small jurisdiction. Is not going to be able to come up with some payment rate for some of these search firms. But I would help you if you decide to do your own. I'll help you as much as I can. But I'm a volunteer. Did you have a question back there?
Ted, if I may, can I just ask a quick question?
It's really not public comment, Jason. You can, John, would you be willing to stick around for
Sure.
public comment?
Sure.
You can ask your question in public comment.
That sounds good.
Okay. Are there any other
I'm good.
questions?
No,
What's that?
he's answered everything I've got.
Okay, any other? Well, if you want one wanna stay for a little bit, we've gotta work through a few things.
Okay, that's fine.
But there might be
Stick
some
around.
public comment that,
Thank you for the
oh, thank
opportunity.
you, man.
Thanks for coming.
I recognize you. Okay, all right.
Okay, on to our interim treasurer, Mrs. Viola. Nice to see you, Ron.
Good to see everyone. How's everyone tonight?
Okay.
It's getting cold outside. The original forecast earlier this week said there was supposed to be little white things floating around the air, a little bit, little flurries, so I'm glad we didn't get that. I think everybody has in their packet the listing of account balances and the claims for the current month to be approved. What that would result in as account balances, and then obviously as what the CDs and investments of the county are. Everyone has a copy of that, there's no reason for me to read that. The one thing I will point out is on the corporate account, the very first line, it talks about a current balance of $44,981.06. Now, that was correct at the time that this was published. Since that time, there has been a payroll that has been funded for tomorrow, and that amount was $96,681. And we also had some receipts that came in as a combination of perhaps the clerk, the sheriff, the state of Illinois, and those totaled, I think, if I can read my numbers right, about $81,000, $81,844. So the actual balance as of about 4 o'clock today is $30,144, not the 44 that they're showing. We would project that, based on the averages that I was able to glean last month and confirm with the deputy treasurer again today, that the average income from the state of Illinois, from the clerk, the sheriff, and miscellaneous income was about $275,000 a month. Now, we've already received 81,000 of that, as I just mentioned, so that means that we could anticipate, and again, these are anticipations, about 193,500. Now, that would give us a balance in the checkbook of 223,700. From that, we've got claims to be approved tonight of 65,154, and that's on your sheets. We would have second payroll for this month of approximately 108,000. Now, last payroll was only 96. Obviously, that goes up and down based on overtime, based on holidays, and a few other things, but we budgeted last month $108,000 per pay period, so we're using the same number to be consistent. We've got an insurance payment that will come out again. It shows up as manual checks that is on the bills that Phyllis will present for payment that are not on the claims on the 65. We do have tax money coming in this month, $87,864. That's the residual from the second distribution. Now, that number is going to be a little short because of taxes that were paid after the due date. Okay, and Bev could not give me that number. Obviously, people that pay their taxes late, we still get our share of that off of our levy. So I'm gonna say 87,800, it's gonna be at least $90,000. And then we've got some other master expenses that goes through the clerk's office of $3,400. Bottom line is all the pluses and the minuses that we anticipate. We should end up the month with a balance in the checkbook of about $53,616. Obviously, that accounts for the claims that are gonna be paid, that accounts for a couple other sheets that Phyllis has here that will be paid, totaling about $3,500. Currently, in the line of credit, there is owed $505,000, and that shows on the bottom of your sheet. And Jeff and I met with the bank today, and that is a good figure. We do owe them, in addition to that today, $9,523.35 in interest. Obviously, I reported last month that we had not paid any interest on that line of credit since September 3rd of last year. Okay? So before I get into talking about the line of credit, are there any questions as far as the general fund, as far as what we anticipate, as far as normal expenses, and where we would anticipate ending up to month end.
At the end of the month, you said that we should have about 53,616, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You had the sheriff's, income coming in from the jail figured in this, estimated in this.
We've got the numbers from an average of base what has been happening
Okay.
historically the last
Okay.
several months. You know, we
Okay.
can't guarantee,
No.
you know,